I need to learn to play that. Beautiful. Let's go, let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all shapes and sizes, today we are doing the mix and master breakdown for SPINALL's Shabba featuring MAVO and Deto Black. As usual, I'm going to walk you through my process and hopefully you can pick up one or two things you can use in your own mix. This was a very simple song to work on, as you can see. Not a lot happening here. Maybe I should actually play you the before and then the after. Although there's a bit of a difference with the before for this track and the after because they changed the drums. But let me just play you the before of what Deto's verse sounded like, and then I'll play you the after. So this is the reference track.
Lips, said he liked the way that I drip. Body so tea, take a sip. Life of the party chief rocker, Deto Black.
And this is the finished record.
Lips, said he liked the way that I drip. Body so tea, take a sip. Life of the party chief rocker, Deto Black. Big SPINALL boy sinner, simmer. Deep Lizzy, tell me who bigger, beat killer.
Bro, I love this babe's verse. This is actually very, very sick. We're gonna start with the drums as usual. We have the kick. Again, my processing for the kick is usually very straightforward and simple. Trim plugin at the top here to create headroom. Then I have my EQ to do a simple low shelf EQ here. I'm always using this 12 dB cut around 31, or sometimes I go down to 20 hertz. What this does for me, like I've said many times, is control the low end. It just makes it sound thicker. You know what? Quick bypass without this EQ. Very simple EQ move, by the way. And then with the EQ, some of you might not hear the difference, understandably, but it's a very small but big difference to me because it keeps the low end very, very tight. And it's more obvious for some kicks than others. For this kick, not very obvious, but it is. I can hear it. And you know the vibes, the process is the same for the drum tracks. I basically just use the trim plugin to create headroom and then carving out space for each individual element in the mix with an EQ. Let's look at this real quick. And as you can see, pretty much that's all I'm doing. I like to use the 96 dB per octave slope. I just make sure I'm not cut into the sound. That's cut into the sound. This is also something I like to do a lot. This dynamic EQ move here to just control the harshness of the hi-hats. I do that for most hi-hats and shakers. Just shiv a little bit off the top right there without the EQ. You can hear it's very, very sharp. Sounds tamed. If you have a lot of shakers or hi-hats in your songs, all of that can accumulate and become very harsh in the end when you're doing your mastering. Something like this helps to tame that harshness. For this particular snare, I'm actually taming some resonant frequencies around 170 Hz here. When you tame resonant frequencies, it actually helps the sound to be more distinct. If I bypass this, you might hear it. Right? It sounds like it's a bit washy. But with that EQ move, it sounds more defined. It's tighter. Doing this actually helps the mix to be very, very tight. And you know how you can hear every individual element in the mix. It's because of simple EQ moves like this that helps to define each sound within their own frequency range. And typically once I'm done with that, I would obviously balance the drums based on what I think will work for the record, as you can see. And then I'll route everything to my drum boss for compression, as well as to my parallel drum boss for parallel drum compression. I also have this 2 cents here, controlling the bass on the record. And the bass for this song was actually just within a sample. Let me show you real quick. Right, so you can see it's within the sample, but obviously I still needed to control that bass, and I'm using the curves resolve to do that. Right, so that we can still give more priority to the kick when the kick and the bass hits at the same time. Because this is a sample, I've done a little bit more EQing to sort of define the different elements of the sample. Let me show you real quick. Doing a high pass on the sides up to 201 Hz. This way we can have a very, very defined low end. And also I'm boosting the bass frequencies, as you can see, but I'm focusing this boost on the mids alone. It's going to help the bass be more defined in the mix, essentially. I've also done a high shelf 1.9K to sort of bring some more life into the sample. And I also have this low shelf here as well, doing up to -12 dB around 31 Hz, again, to control that low end, to keep it tight. I'm going to bypass this EQ so we can hear the difference that this makes to the sample without the EQ. And then with the EQ. Beautiful. I mean, we can hear how defined the bass sounds. We can hear the presence and the strings. These simple EQ moves is how you achieve that. Mid-side EQing is actually very, very delicious. I made a video about this a while ago. I'm going to leave a link here in case you want to learn some more about mid-side EQ. Let's move on to the rest of the melodies, see what we're doing here. I like the sound. Beautiful. Again, the trim plugin at the very top to manage our peak, and then the EQ to take our resonant frequencies and carve out space. Pretty much. And then I have the doubler here as well to increase the stereo width of the pad, because this is a pad and I want it to go to the sides more so that all the other elements that are playing on this particular section of the music can shine. In essence, everyone will have their own space. You can hear that. Beautiful, right? We also have another part here. And I'm doing the same thing here with the doubler, but I've set the panning a bit differently. I'm creating a wide funnel, a smaller funnel, and a sound in the center. So everybody has their own space. That's how I visualize this whole process. Yeah, for the saxophone, I'm not doing so much actually. The usual gain staging and EQing to carve out space, as well as target resonant frequencies. And then I added a little bit of delay here to add just a tiny bit of tail to the saxophone so that it doesn't just fade at once when it stops playing, right? You know, it's quite nice. I'm using the Nectar delay for this, by the way. There's one fun thing here that we added during the mixing process, this sample. Because she said, take a sip at that particular part of a verse. And then she was like, what if we added like a sip type of effect? So that's what we did there.
Body so tea, take a sip. Life of the party chief rocker. Deto Black, big spinal, born sinner.
It's actually quite cool. I really like the idea. Automation here to pan the sip to go from left to right.
Body so tea, take a sip. Life of the party chief rocker.
Left to right. Simple details like this can actually make your song a lot of fun. What else? So that's it for the melodies. And as usual, I balance the levels of the melodies based on what I think will work for the record, and then I route to my melody bus for processing, compression essentially. And let's look at the buses real quick. The drum bus, we have my favorite LA2 compressor.
Body so tea, take a sip. Life of the party.
You can see the compressor on this particular song is really not for compressing at all. I am not doing any compression here. More or less like an amplification tool. Just running the signal through it and just making things a little bit fatter, and then using the gain knob to just give it the amount of level that I think works for the song. Let me take this off so you hear the difference.
Body so tea, take a sip.
You know, so it's very low, but with the compressor on.
Body so tea, take a sip. But
that's not all I'm doing to get the drums to be up front. We do have the Magma stress box, and I'm adding a little bit of parallel processing as well with this. Just set the mix to 35, and the ratio is about 1:5. So very small compression, and I'm blending that back into the drum mix.
Body so tea, take a sip. Life of
just a little bit more shine. I love the Magma stress box. Without it, this is it.
Body so tea, take a sip. Life of the party chief.
It's nice, but with it.
Body so tea, take a sip. Life of the party.
Crazy, just a tiny bit and you have more life. For the melody bus, again, we have our compression.
Body so tea, take a sip. Life of the party chief rocker.
Not doing any compression here, just an amplification tool. And then I have the Magma stress box doing the same thing that I did for the drums. So without the Magma stress box.
Body so tea, take a sip. Life of the party.
With the Magma stress box.
Body so tea, take a sip. Life of the party chief.
You know, just a tiny bit and you have that life. And then we have the curve resolve here again. But what I'm doing with this is sidechaining the vocals to that when the vocals play, the melody ducks a bit.
But you still see when she whining on me. I can't explain what I'm feeling. I'm lost in touch.
As you can see, when MAVO's verse is playing, the melodies are ducking just a tiny bit to create more pocket for the vocals essentially. But I like to do this step after I've done the mix to where everything already sounds great. For me, this is like the final layer to get the vocals to just sit perfectly into the mix. Now let's go back to the vocals real quick. For MAVO's verse, he did send his verse in with effects. Now this is something that happens from time to time. You get artists that think they like the way their vocals sound, and that's fine. So they will send in their vocals with the effects that they like. But as a mixing engineer, you have to also listen for what is missing that you can add or remove to make things sound better. And that's what we're doing here. Now, when I take off the effects that we've done for his vocals, you hear how his vocals sound without them, right? So MAVO's vocals without any additional effects from me. I mean, it sounds good. I felt like it needed a bit more in terms of compression to boost the sound a bit and some more delay. So let's look at what we're doing. I'm going to start with the SSLE real quick. First of all, I'm not doing it to the highs or the high mids or the low frequencies. I'm only focused on the low mid because I could hear a bit of mod in the low mid from how they've mixed his vocals already, and that's what I use this to take out. So without this, let's hear how it sounds. And then with the SSLE, I just took out a little bit of the low mid there around say 750 Hz to help the vocals to sit better in the mix. And then I'm doing a little bit more compression with the LA2A to bring the vocals up in the mix.
I can't explain what I'm feeling. I'm lost in touch. I'm lost for words. Got trapped like Shabba.
Just barely going above -2 dB of gain reduction there. Again, to bring the vocals forward in the mix. And then we have the high fall, and I'm using this to just tame the harshness in the vocals. Right.
I can't explain what I'm feeling.
When I take it off, you're gonna hear how hot the vocal sounds.
I can't explain what I'm feeling.
And then with the high fall.
I can't explain what I'm feeling. I'm lost in touch. I'm lost for words. Got trapped like Shabba.
Just enough to keep the vocals very natural sounding and warm. And then obviously we have the delay, just a little bit more delay so that we can have a nice tail going after his phrases. Pretty much. So that's everything we've done for MAVO's verse. Deto's verse, on the other hand, gets all the goodness that I can bring to vocals because it came without effects.
Lips, said he liked the way that I drip. Body so tea, take a sip. Life of the...
If I'm being honest with you, I think it would have been better if they sent MAVO's verse without effects. But, you know, people like what they like. Again, mixing is subjective. I'm not saying I could have done a better job, but I'm saying maybe it could have sounded just a little bit better without the effect. But again, people like what they like, and that's fine. You know, when you're mixing, you have to understand that mixing is subjective. All right, so let's look at Deto's vocal chain and see what we're doing. It's still my standard lead vocal chain, essentially.
Lips, said he liked the way that I drip.
At the very top, I have the Clarity VX there to just work on some noises if need be. Catch off EQ to target resonant frequencies in the vocals. The SR for initial sibilance control. I have the SSLE where I start to do the main tone shaping for the vocals. Now, because this is a female vocals, they tend to be quite sharp. So as you can see on the high frequencies, I'm actually cutting. I'm not boosted. I'm also cutting around, I guess you can say 1 dB, around 3K as well to control some harshness. And I'm cutting up to, maybe we can call this like 12 minus 13 dB, around 750 to control the low mid frequencies. And then for the low frequencies, I'm cutting just maybe like 2 or 4 dB, around 200 Hz. Female vocals usually don't have a lot of low end. This is just enough to help it sit properly in the mix. If I take this off, you hear the difference. So without the SSLE.
Lips, said he liked the way that I drip. Body so tea, take a sip.
And then with the SSLE.
Lips, said he liked the way that I drip. Body so tea, take a sip.
You can hear how that helps the vocals to sit properly in the mix. And then we have our first compressor, which is the 1176 compressor. Again, I like to compress in series. This is just here to capture peaks.
Lips, said he liked the way that I drip. Body so T, take a sip.
Move on to the C6. If you look at the settings for the C6, you can also see that I am doing maybe about 2 dB of boost on the high frequencies and around 3 on the high mid. And that's because this is female vocals. Female vocals tend to have a lot more harshness in the highs, so you don't need too much anymore. This is just enough to brighten the vocals and give it a bit more presence.
Lips, said he liked the way that I drip.
Let me take it off.
Lips, said he liked the way that I drip. Body so T, take a sip.
And then with the C6,
Lips, said he liked the way that I drip. Body so T, take a sip.
you can hear the control. The vocal sounds very, very smooth. How to use this from scratch, and I'm going to leave a link here so you can check it out as usual. And then we have the Nest compressor, which is the LA2. This is the main compressor for evening out the performance of the vocals on the chain.
Lips, said he liked the way that I drip. Body so T, take a sip. Life of the party chief rocker, Deto Black, big SPINALL boy Sennheiser.
But as you can see, I'm actually not doing heavy compression for the vocals here as well. Just about 2 dB of gain reduction on the max there, which is interesting. And then we have hi-fi again, just to control the warmth of the vocals.
Lips, said he liked the way that I drip. Body so T, take a sip.
And sometimes I like to set the attack to slow because I want to allow a little bit of that initial transient to cut through before hi-fi starts to grab what it's grabbing, you know, just to keep the vocals feeling a bit more natural. And as usual, we have the time-based effect, room reverb, reverb and stereo delay. The main reverb is our H reverb as usual. Our delay is the comeback in, right? The room reverb we're using the pure plate. So that's everything I've done for the mix side of things. As you can see, very simple record, very straightforward. We do have background vocals as well. Again, the processing is very similar to the lead, just that the EQ is different, just a bit more cutting on the low end here as well as the low mid. And the C6 as well, I'm doing less compression on the C6 for the background vocals.
Girls wanna be me. They so BC. All the girls wanna be me.
I like to keep background vocals just a little bit shinier than the lead because they're going to be in the background anyways, so they can have a bit more sort of like hidden presence. I don't know how to put it. And obviously we have the main compressor, and then I'm using the SPL DSO here to control the warmth of the vocals. Like I've said many times, I like to separate the background vocals from the lead with time-based effects. So we have a much more bigger sound, the reverb with the Vala vintage verb, and we have a different delay, the Nectar delay. You know, plugins, they do sound different. So that's another way you can create a distinction between your background and your lead vocals. And I have the chorus send, which is feeding the chorus aux track, which has the doubler to just increase the width of the background vocals. But as usual, before I hit the background vocal bus, I always go through my background summing aux track, which has the ozone multiband compressor for that initial control that helps the background vocals to sit below the lead vocals.
See, all the girls wanna be me.
This is actually a very, very dope technique. I made a video about it a while ago as well. We're gonna leave a link here. So that's that for the mix. Let's go over to the mastering real quick. For the mastering chain, I have the VU meter at the very top to visually monitor the peak of my mix.
See, all the girls wanna be me.
Just to make sure we're constantly at 0 on the V meter essentially. And then we have the ozone. And within the ozone, I like to do my dynamic EQ here to target resonant frequencies. A simple 1 dB boost around 60 Hz to add a bit more thickness to the low end. And then the stereo E major essentially.
See, all the girls wanna be me.
And I love this imager because you can obviously set crossover points so that you can set your stereo imaging differently for each different range. And then we have the SPL PQ for the final tone shaping of the entire record.
Yeah, we run the town, no they see. All the girls wanna be me.
Setup here is very, very simple. 2 dB boost on the low frequency around 60 Hz. 1 dB cut around 220 Hz for the low mid. Nothing for the mid frequencies. For the high mid, I'm doing a 1 dB boost around 2.6K. For the high frequency, I'm doing a 2 dB boost around 18K, and that's giving us the sound that you're hearing. Now, these settings barely change for most songs I work on, you know, because this is a sound that I enjoy hearing, and this is a sound that competes with everything that's out there. So usually what I do is maybe sometimes a more boost on the high frequencies or less, or more boost on the high mid or less, or more cut on the low mid frequencies, and maybe sometimes the frequencies might change. But this is working for the songs that I work on based on how I mix. It might be different for you. And then we have the SPL Ion to glue the entire record together.
Yeah, we run the town, no they see. All the girls wanna be me.
Typically 1 dB of gain reduction is fine for glue compression when you're mastering, but feel free to experiment, you know, maybe do more compression for your record and see if it works for your record. Very slow attack, very fast release, that's what you want. I like to use the mono maker to keep everything below 81 Hz mono. The high pass sidechain filter as well set to 91 Hz just to make sure the compression is not totally triggered by the low frequency or basically everything below 91 Hz. And then we have the black ball saturation plugin for saturation across the entire song. Again, if you've seen any of my videos, the setting doesn't change here too, to be honest. I always like to set to flat so I can have saturation across the entire frequency range, and I'm always doing parallel processing with this. So mix is set to 50, pentode 50, go into the triode at 50, saturation is also at 50%. Just a little dash of the black box into the entire record. And this is actually a very dope sounding plugin. You know what, let's do a quick bypass. So without it,
yeah, we run the town, know they see all the girls wanna be me, they so beat.
And then with the black box,
yeah, we run the town, know they see all the girls wanna be me, they so beat. Always overseas.
You can hear the refineness that the song automatically has. It just sounds finished. That's that saturation shine on top of the entire record. And by the way, I'm using the air on the plugin as well, and I set the air to about 40% just to create that nice, bright, and crisp high frequencies. And then we have the gold clip, and we're using this to obviously clip the entire record.
Me, they so beat. Always overseas, always double C's. Diamond stands it, please. Got these niggas on their knees.
I'm surprisingly not doing a lot of clipping on this particular song. Usually I like to do about 2 dB of clipping, but I usually aim for anywhere between -4.5 to 5 dB peak before I hit the limiter. So this is giving me that as well. Again, I have a video on the channel on how to use this plugin from scratch. I'm going to leave a link if I can, or you can just browse the channel for it. And finally, we have the newfangled Elevate limiter.
Yeah, we run the town, know they see all the girls wanna be me, they so beat.
This is a very, very, very beautiful sounding limiter. Since my friend put me onto this limiter about 2 years ago now, I've not changed. It's just so good. You have the transient emphasis to give more snappiness to your song, especially if you're mixing Afrobeat. This is very good. The transient emphasis is very good. I've set the speed to be sort of like slow so that my transient can call through. The gain is set to 7. I have the adaptive gain and adaptive speed and adaptive transient also turned on. So which means even though I've set my levels, it's still sort of program dependent. You know what I mean? So you can have a much more transparent sound. I should probably make a video about this plugin, but maybe one of these days. So yeah, that's that. And all of this processing is essentially giving us a value of around.
She a brown skin girl, but you still see when she whining on me. I can't explain what I'm feeling. I'm lost in thoughts, I'm lost for words. Got trapped like Shabba, so her body make you load the Shabba.
So that's -10.5 LUFS and -0.5 true peak. Okay, so that's it. That's everything we've done for this record. I hope you got something from this, and if you did, as usual, make sure you leave me a like and subscribe to the channel if you've not, and share my videos if you feel it will be beneficial to anybody that you know. Okay, and if you'd like to book my services for mixing and mastering, I'm going to leave a link below to the engineers page, or you can hit me up on Instagram at BennyMacaulayDB. And if you'd like to buy my vocal and mastering presets for FL Studio, Logic Pro, and Pro Tools, as well as my mixing and mastering template for Logic Pro and Pro Tools, I'm going to leave a link below to the store as well. And remember, you can also send me your songs if you want me to listen to your song and give you honest feedback on the Card Test show, which happens every Thursday on the channel. All right, so that's good to be for now. I shall see you on the next one. Benny Macaulay out.
She a brown skin girl, but you still see when she whining on me. I can't explain what I'm feeling. I'm lost in thoughts, I'm lost for words. Got trapped like Shabba, so her body make you load the Shabba.